Caden, I'll let you take it. I have a feeling that we're probably going to end up starting with wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any wins to get us started here today? Any good things going on in your business? Tell me something good in your life, in your business. What's going on?
I'll brag about Surface Renew for a second. They they've been with us for, I have no idea actually, maybe over 3 years for sure. Maybe 4, I don't know. But they had their biggest month ever in the history of the business in August. And there's just with those guys, they're not here right now, but I want to emphasize their desire to continue to implement and refine everything that we do. You know, there's always a desire to, what can we do better? How can we do it better? What are we missing? Every single one of our meetings. So that's the results you get. You still hit new records after several years. So that's my win here.
Boom!
Woo! Yes. Love seeing those guys win. Anybody else have a win that they want to share?
On mute.
I got all we do is win, so this is pretty easy for us. So we have a couple things we kind of buckled down on receivables, and last month we pulled in $180,000 of receivable accounts. So that was cool. And we recently had a hailstorm kind of come through right in our home area, and we instantly fired up the old computer and pulled a customer list with affected zip codes. And I think we're up to just short of $400,000 of previous customer estimates. So low-hanging fruit, easy win there.
Incredible.
Woo!
Wow, come on. Must feel
just
good to get paid on work you've already done.
It did feel good.
And then just anybody, as we're approaching the fall winter season, if you are approaching your slower couple of months, that is such a testament to that low hanging fruit, your customer database. There's so much wealth in that customer database. They have over $300,000 worth of estimates that they gave to their customer database alone after that storm. Like, just don't forget to nurture that customer database. If you need ideas on how to do it, please get with your coach. Any other wins that we have coming in here? We'd love for you to unmute and share.
I'll go for it. So we had our highest gross sales in the month of just last month that we've ever had in history. So we broke an all-time record.
What the heck is going on?
Wow, come on.
Something in the water. We love it. We love it.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Incredible. Well, does anyone else have any wins before we get started here? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, what I want to talk to you guys about today is hiring and firing like a pro. And before diving too deep into this, does anyone, I'm kind of curious, and I would imagine some of you probably do, but does anybody kind of have any crazy stories about their employees? Anyone have a tough firing experience? You can just raise your hand. Okay, Shaytoya, I see you down there. Does anyone want to share a crazy story that they've had if they're firing or hiring somebody?
Whose story is the craziest? That's what I want to hear.
I got one. About
Starts with the chuckle.
2 or 3 years ago, I hired this guy. Didn't really got a good feeling from him. Thought he was kind of this recovering dude that he said he was. Nice enough guy. Brought him in after about 3 months. Realized he wasn't recovered from anything. He was still on the up and up. He was eating a bag of Cheetos on the approved set of plans from the county when the inspector showed up to get us an inspection, and he had Cheetos on my plans, and I'm like, oh my god. So He had a lot of tattoos. Long story short, I gently told him we didn't have any work for him because at this point I realized he was kind of a loose cannon. Um, let him go. He asked me for his job back twice, told him no. I was kind of a little worried. 3 months later, he was on the news for a double homicide.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my
Remember that guy,
gosh.
Chris? And yeah.
Uh,
So I got a text from my tile guy and he said, dude, you're hiring murderers now? And I'm like, what? Yeah. So needless to say, that was probably the craziest experience with hiring and firing.
oh,
I didn't fire. I gently laid off, and it's a good thing because apparently
yes.
he's got a temper.
Yeah,
Yes.
hopefully that
Well,
wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah. Yeah.
No,
Who doesn't need that responsibility, Caden?
Yeah.
right? No,
Well,
yeah, it was.
that's a great example of if you have somebody who is toxic in your workplace or who you feel like could be a liability, I don't care how good of work they do or how desperate you are for people, get them out of there.
Mhm.
We're going to be talking about that later today. I saw that Dale with Arnold's Plumbing is on here. And I know his computer work doesn't have a mic, and so I don't know if you can unmute or not, Dale. But one of my favorite stories is one of his where he had somebody apply, interviewed them, brought them into shadow, like to spend a couple hours with him in the truck to see if they actually know what they're doing, type of thing. And they're driving in the truck and they're talking, Dale's driving, and all of a sudden this guy just stops responding to him. Like just stops responding. And he looks over and this guy fell asleep in the middle of their shadow. Just fell asleep in the car. And Dale like wakes him up. And he's like, dude, he's like, oh yeah, sometimes that happens. It's like, well, glad we're finding that out now before I put you in a van by yourself.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes car rides can be very soothing.
Yeah, you would think the interview though might be incentivized to stay awake. It's just
Yeah. Man, but that's just a testament to the hiring system to do that shadow day
Yep.
before you bring them on the payroll. You couldn't find that out in an interview. You couldn't find that out on a resume unless someone says I have whatever that is, not insomnia, whatever. But
right.
Narcolepsy. Right?
Narcolepsy.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a situation that literally I'm in the middle of hiring some guys, and I would love any feedback on it, or if you guys are going to touch on it. But his son was sick in the daycare, so he had to just drop and leave, which happens. But man, that was a blower on day 2 of his test interview. So
Yeah. I mean, responsibilities, yeah, things are tough like that. I was going to actually mention, I don't know if any of the coaches here remember, but we had a guy come in to shadow one day.
Oh yeah.
And, again, like Bryce said, kind of a testament to the hiring system. He shows up for a group interview. Robert likes the looks of him, tells him to come in for a shadow. And I don't know if he had a piercing or something that Robert had asked him to get rid of for the shadow day. But 15 minutes into the shadow, Robert pulls him into his office and it's like, hey, I thought we addressed this. I thought we weren't going to wear these for this, today. And the guy just walks out of Robert's office and is just screaming at him, as he's leaving the office, 10 minutes in. And it was just like, what the heck is going on? So just, all sorts of crazy things can happen. And kind of a testament, like Rice said, to the hiring process, why we want to have something built like this to vet those people out, to weed them out.
Well, back to what the other guy was saying about the guy leaving for his guy. I'm sort of on that same brink too. I'd like to see what people's thoughts are. I mean, is that something that you look at as a deal breaker? Does that set the tone for how many times this guy's going to have to call in, be able to use that sort of excuse on dates? I mean, I'm in the same boat. I give the people the benefit of the doubt. Your kid's sick. You got to go get them. I don't know your personal background. Is it my business yet? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm always, family first, but is that a cop out? Are they really doing that? Kind of what
Right.
was your guys' feedback? I think he
Oh.
was looking for that as well.
A rule that I like to use on this before I let anybody else give their 2 cents here, and we may not even go through the slides. I think that'll be fine. But no, a rule that I like to use for that is, there are some excuses that seem like, hey, that's a valid excuse. When I get concerned is when there's a pattern of valid excuses. That's when it becomes, more than just, it's just an excuse. It just becomes something, it just becomes a behavior. Even if it's a lot of valid excuses, I just can't be with someone who's sick every other day if they really are sick every other day. I mean, that's just the way it works. But I think especially in that first week, it can get extra sensitive, and those just one sick day on your first week can feel like, a real big blow, like a real big concern. I would just be honest and upfront. Hey, that's fine. I get it. But just know that I am a little worried that it's our first week and something's already happened, but let's just kind of keep that open communication.
It's a great response, Rudy. I would also just say it's all about setting expectations, of like, hey, I completely understand we're family first here, take care of it today. In the future, here's what I expect. We want to be able to, that's one of the benefits of working for a company like ours, is that we can be accommodating to these type of things. But if it becomes like a weekly thing, or if it becomes really like inhibiting to your work, then that's when we're going to have a conversation. Like, you just really want to set expectations, because there are those times where things happen. But like Rudy said, if it becomes a pattern, you can't let somebody's dysfunctional life become your problem as the business owner, because it's not, it's not your problem. You can't take that on. And so if they're constantly have a burning fire, constantly have all these things going, there does come a time where you have to sit down and say, hey, this is what I expect from you as my employee. And if you cannot meet this, then unfortunately, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But Caden, we'll let you go. We know you have whole slides prepared. Might answer some of these questions. So
Absolutely.
through it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you guys participating in that. But yeah, so we can kind of dive into everything here. I want to touch on the hiring system, essentially just kind of building out your team, as far as helping you grow and scale your company. So, first thing to know is that nobody builds and grows a successful business without having a good, strong team to support them. So we're wanting to build your A team. We need to find your Mr. T. We need to find, your Dwight Schultz. So most of you are probably already at the point, like we've talked about, where you've needed to hire people, bring somebody on board to help, whether that be laborers, office staff, bookkeepers. You've probably already gone through a whole cycle of different people. And if you're just now getting to that point and you have no idea where to start with hiring, then this call is especially for you. But ultimately, just kind of want to focus on not only the best ways to find great candidates, but also ways to get rid of non-performers as well. So those would be guys who are showing up late, they get too comfortable, or maybe in some cases you have guys where they just don't show up at all. So I guess to kind of get started here, I want to go over why you need a system dedicated to hiring. And if you're working or if you've been working with us for a while, you know that a system is really just an organized method or series of steps to help you reach a goal. So why do you need a hiring system? Well, first off, as of May 2022, there are over 400,000 job openings in the construction industry alone. Now, on top of that, there are only about 390,000 candidates to even pull from, meaning there's this huge discrepancy between the two, meaning there's, about 50,000 vacancies in construction companies across the country. So for, the GCs, the remodelers out there, this is, honestly, the biggest reason why you need a dedicated system to finding the right guys, because it is an absolute battle out there to get these guys on board. On top of that, 68% of trade skill business owners are struggling to hire skilled workers, and 35% of those companies are actually understaffed. So this is, my plumbers, electrician, HVAC guys, again, it's a battle. We want to build a system to win. And then, some other statistics here. 81% of candidates are actually lying to you in your interviews, and 85% of them are lying to you on their resumes. And then the last one, only 32% of people are actually engaged in their job. And then 17% of people are actively disengaged in their job. So what that means is people are literally showing up to work. They're showing up to the job looking for something else to do. They're not engaged. They show up, they get on their phone immediately. So I share all of this because I know some of you have dealt with some of these things, if not all of these. So I want to go over what we can do to really begin to target and overcome these challenges. So those are the reasons why we need a hiring system. What can we do to start building a hiring system? And I kind of debated on what I should put here, because there are, certain rubrics that we have found and want to follow in order for you guys to even know, when the business is kind of ready to bring somebody on board. But I wanted to keep it simple. So if you have questions specifically about when you need to be hiring, we can address those things in the breakout rooms or in your individual coaching meetings. So if you guys need people ASAP, there are 3 foundational things I want to go over with you guys to find the people that you need. So first one here is, let's start with the business profile on, something like Indeed. Incredibly simple, incredibly straightforward, but surprisingly not a lot of people that I have worked with have. And it's really easy to set up if you don't have one already. But this is going to open you up to an entire pool of candidates that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And I know some people hate Indeed. Some people swear it doesn't work. But in my experience, it's what I've seen the most success with the clients that I'm working with. So obviously there are other sites, there's other resources that you guys can use as well. So obviously Indeed isn't the smoking gun to all your problems, but definitely going to be a big step in the right direction. On top of that, we got the profile on Indeed launched. The second thing that we're going to need is a well-written job description. And I emphasize well-written because I have seen these vary from literally just a few sentences to pages and pages of text, images. You got emojis on there these days. Okay, so we need to find a happy medium. And honestly, the reason why this is so important is because this is going to be the first impression a candidate has with your business. So if it's super short, it looks like it's thrown together, there's spelling errors in there, that's going to directly reflect on your business. This could also appeal to candidates that we're actively trying to avoid. So with that said, vice versa. If you have a well-written job description, it outlines your goals as a business. You go over the qualifications you're seeking, the requirements that are needed. You really begin to pinpoint the exact person that you're looking for. And if you have a great coach, we'll typically write these out for you. So no need to worry about that.
But if you have a bad coach, we won't do it for you.
Exactly.
No, we have plenty of templates and things to help in writing these for you guys.
And then the last thing here is it's a bit different from the first two, but honestly, it's the most important, and that's tenacity and consistency. So the idea behind this is we want to treat these applicants the same exact way we treat leads. If you're getting an email from Indeed saying somebody has applied, let's try and give them a call as soon as possible. Don't worry about or even waste your time reading through their resume. Don't worry about trying to schedule these long one-on-one interviews. just ask them the important questions right then and there. Doing an initial phone interview will actually reveal, just about everything you would read on a resume and then some. You really learn the nuance that, that reveals itself in conversation. And if you don't reach them, leave a voicemail, send them a text, just show that you're interested in learning more about them, getting a hold of them, putting them through the process, because I can guarantee that if you aren't doing this, somebody else is. So all that to say, hiring and finding strong candidates is 10% about where you're looking. It's 10% about how you're presenting your business, and 80% about your consistency and determination. In fact, I recently I started working with a client who's an absolute all-star. His name's Michael, Florida Mud Masters. But basically, he got started with us and said, "Caden, I need guys yesterday. I'm so busy I can't even see straight. Jobs are falling behind." And all we did, we followed these 3 steps here, and he was actually able to find and hire a guy in a matter of days. I actually met with him yesterday, and he told me it took less than a week to get this guy onboarded. So again, real basic, real simple, but foundational things that you guys need to get started. And then obviously from there, let's say you're doing all of these things, you need better results, you're still not finding the right guys. Then there are obviously ways that we can enhance this process. So how can we be the best when it comes to hiring? Well, let's start by casting a wider net. Let's not only prioritize the candidates that you see on Indeed, but let's start looking at other places. I mean, you got ZipRecruiter, there's Monster, there's Facebook, there's Craigslist. You can even build hiring flyers that you guys can, post around your local community or even on your social media pages. So really a ton of resources available to you guys. And when it comes to, these higher skill positions, a lot of times this is actually what's going to be required. So don't be discouraged if you're having a harder time with this. And then, let's say you've got the net casted, you're still looking for people. Maybe we can't get a hold of them. Well, there are ways to actually set up auto-responsive communication when people actually apply. And you can use this type of communication maybe to invite candidates to a group interview. I've had people send a link to actually just schedule a call in their calendar that people can use. So there's a number of different ways that you can use this type of communication to get a hold of people as quickly as possible.
Yeah, if I can, I would almost add these two, or I see these combining into something else as well. In casting a wider net and auto responding, we talk about this in the hiring system, but Caden mentioned this earlier too. Most people lie on their resumes. There's a whole lot that you can't learn in that first sweep. So we want to bring people in to be able to see what they actually are in person, in real life, before we really do all this vetting, hours and so much time spent looking over resumes, comparing and him and hawing about, is this exactly what I need? Can they really make the fit work? Do that at the end of the process, after they've proven that they can show up to an interview, that they're responsive whenever you reach out to them, and that they can do the work that they said that they can do whenever you have them come and shadow. So casting that wider net could just be filtering a little bit less by going through resumes and scheduling interviews and things like that.
100%. Yeah. And then number 3 here, I view as a big one, and maybe something that you guys need to be doing already. But if you're struggling to find the right people, then let's start allocating time every week to focus specifically on hiring. Whether that be, managing your profiles, responding to candidates, scheduling, interviews, reposting your jobs. All of these different things that really can enhance the process moving forward. And on top of that, if you guys already have this time blocked off, you can actually use that for conducting interviews as well, whether that be the group interview like we talked about, or one-on-ones. So definitely something that, again, ways to enhance, but something that we should probably be doing already. And then after doing all of these things, you're still not having any luck, then, let's look at offering sign-on bonuses. Kind of like I talked about in the beginning, it's a battle out there to win these guys' attention. And if you want to stand out, we're going to need to do what other companies just aren't willing to do. And a sign-on bonus should really pale in comparison to what that employee should be able to bring in and actually produce for the company. So I would definitely keep that in mind if this is a route you want to go down. But these are kind of the basic principles of actually building out a successful hiring system, and finding the right employees. And I know it can be much more nuanced than this when it comes to an interview process, scheduling shadow days. But ultimately, if we're following these core steps, this is what's going to set you up for success in the long term. And then as we're refining your process, moving forward, that's going to make all the difference. So once you guys have these qualified candidates, you have the right people in place to really start building the business. Let's kind of talk about getting rid of maybe people who are hurting, or even damaging your company. So I have a quote here from Tim Ferriss. Really powerful quote. A person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. Tim Ferriss is an incredibly smart guy. He was an early investor in companies like Uber, Facebook, Shopify, things like that. Even New York Times attributes him of being a cross between Jack Welch and a Buddhist monk, which I thought was interesting. Jack Welch being an incredibly successful CEO in his own right. But the reason I use this quote is that as a business owner, we have to overcome, the sometimes difficult task of firing somebody or letting them go. And honestly, I only have one slide for this because I do think a lot of business owners maybe make this more difficult than it needs to be. So kind of just some guidelines here, things to watch out for. But I guess also some caveats as well. So when it comes to your firing, it really shouldn't be a surprise to an employee that you're wanting to get rid of them. And what I mean by that is that if you notice an employee's performance is dropping, if they're consistently showing up late, they're on their phone, whatever it may be, those things need to be addressed. And I would say the only time maybe it would be a surprise to them is if it's a surprise to you. And so this would essentially be a situation where an employee does something that requires you to fire them on the spot. And I have an example, actually. A client told me one time that an employee of his showed up to a job site with a twisted T. Does anyone know what that is? Raise a hand. Got it. Well, so, for those that don't, it's essentially just a beer. But on top of showing up to a job site with this, it was also 9 a.m. So safe to say he didn't stick around much longer after that. But so the kind of the hard question is, Caden, how do you address those things? How do you bring those up before it gets too late? Well, using a write-up system is honestly a great way to bring these issues up. And I think initially it can start with a candid conversation, about the infraction, whatever it may be. Hey, why'd you show up late? Hey, why are you sitting on your phone at the job site? Hey, why are you drinking beer at 9 a.m? And then as these problems escalate or they begin to persist, then that's when we can start using a write-up system. So Basically, when you're writing somebody up, this needs to be a more formal conversation than the candid one. Sit them down, kind of explain why you're having the conversation to begin with. Work on what needs to change. And then after you have this conversation, have them sign a document that basically acknowledges that both of you have come to an agreement, things are going to change moving forward. So from that point, there's really no excuses. And when it comes to a system like this, you can go about it however you want. I know some people do like a 3-strike rule. Some people just do a 1 and done rule. Honestly, as the business owner, it's completely up to you guys how you want to handle it. But as far as, what to be mindful of, and honestly, just some completely valid reasons why you would want to get rid of somebody. If you have an employee who's destroying morale, they're going around, they're talking to other team members about how bad things are, or how they would do things differently. That's something that we want to address. If you have an employee who's obstructing performance, they're showing up late, they're taking multiple trips to get materials. Again, they're on their phone a lot of the times. Let's nip that in the butt. And then lastly, honestly, the most important thing here is if an employee is costing you more money than they are bringing in, I mean, what's the point? What's the point of keeping somebody like that around? So again, a few guidelines here, candid conversation, write-up system, but ultimately, begin to have those difficult conversations. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for today. So, we can get into our breakout rooms and go from there.